Yes.
Okay, hello and welcome. This is Elizabeth and Elton Clare Brewington on the Discover Brightside, and Heather has honored us to launch a brand new product service series that she's going to be offering. And it has the word empowerment in it. So pay attention. Over to you, Heather.
So thank you again very much, everyone, for being here. It is always an honor to be with you and sharing my insight, my love for what it is that I do, but more than anything else, my service. So to give a little bit of clarity and perspective for those of you who have never met me, my name is Heather Dolland Tamam. I am actually the author of 4 books. My most recent, and how I was able to meet Elizabeth and Elton, is called Create Your Own Table, A Guide to Discovering Your Purpose. And so back in 2015, when I wanted to move from being an environmental consultant into the alcohol business, I wrote my very first book called Discovering the New York Craft Spirits Boom. And some of you may be like, what? How does one individual go from being an environmental? So I have a degree in environmental consulting and architecture, but being completely honest, I had gotten to that point where I knew that even though those credentials were amazing, and I worked really hard, I was 7 years of college to achieve those credentials and that particular goal, it was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I didn't know what that thing was. And it was extraordinarily scary. And I realized back in 2015 when I'm like, okay, I need to step out of this business, out of that company. I worked for a private firm at the time, and I wanted to create my own, but I didn't have the credentials. And I began to realize that that's where a lot of people stay stuck because you're doing something that you have all of the formal credentials in, but that thing that you want to do, that you feel called to do, and why was I feel called to do be in the alcohol business is an entirely separate story. But the abridged version to that is that I am originally from Grenada. And a friend of mine who's also from Grenada, she needed help with tastings. And I realized that it wasn't about the alcohol, it was about the education. I loved teaching people about different brands and having them have different experiences. And so I kept paying attention to that feeling. And so when I wrote this book, I interviewed 30 distillers throughout New York State and I told their story. That then allowed them to share my story, and it was a very organic way for me to enter into that business. Unfortunately, the challenges came as it often does with life, right? Everything is not linear and it's not always that simple. And very quickly, I realized the issues that I was having with this space, with the clients, with just a lot of challenges. I wrote my second book. This was my very first self-published book called Before the Glass, Things to Consider When Entering the Booze Business. And what this book, so this book, I use a traditional publisher. This one I self-published. And what this book allowed me to understand was that I have the ability, the power to be able to tell my own story and guide it in a way that works for me, not for someone else. Now, if you have a traditional publisher, great, go for it. But when I wrote this book, I was at a very miserable milestone, if I'm just going to be completely transparent. That's how I prefer to be. I realized a very expensive lesson, which was that the only thing worse than having no client was having a bad one. And I was not willing to take that chance again because what that horrible lesson, the way that it eroded my finances, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that I have a qualifier. I have something that I could give to individuals so that they understand how I think and you understand what I'm offering. And so we can have that conversation very early on so that we're not creating this a relationship of friction and anger and resentment and all of those things because we don't understand each other. I also learned a very important lesson here, which is understanding who your right fit client is. And COVID came along, essentially killed that business. And if I'm completely honest, also, I was kind of over it because I realized this was the hardest work that I had ever done. But there were so many challenges that I was experiencing. But more than that, I felt like I had a lot of knowledge that I wasn't leveraging. And I needed to show all of who I was. I wasn't just an environmental consultant. I wasn't a person who was just in alcohol. I'm a fully well-rounded individual. I have multiple facets. How can I just share all of who I am? And so that's when I wrote Pivot, because life doesn't always go as planned. And Pivot was essentially my reset book. It was my book that a lot, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to share everything and see what lands and where it lands because I didn't know. This is me being completely transparent. I knew I was searching. I knew I was heading in the right direction, but I didn't know what my destination was. And the only thing that I knew to do was share. But in sharing my stories in Pivot, the immigrant story, the education story, the shifting businesses and industry story, I began to get a lot of feedback. And what the majority of that feedback told me was that a lot of people stay stuck. They have a lot of knowledge and they just don't know how to channel that knowledge from one thing into something else. They don't value the knowledge that they have. They have a ton of experience. They're not valuing that experience because I don't have the perfect credentials. And so that was the reason that I then wrote Create Your Own Table. And I essentially created an ecosystem around Create Your Own Table that once you pick this book up, you would, and not that I give guarantees, but I kind of promise, you would gain some level of clarity. It may not be perfect, and nothing in life is. Be comfortable in your imperfection, but you will gain some level of clarity with, like, okay, this is what I want to do. You may not have an exact understanding, an exact blueprint, but you know that you could just move forward, just make a decision. Because you will never get any clarity unless you take the first step. And that's all you need to do. Just take that first step, even if it's imperfect, just do it. Because in those steps, that's when you know. And that's why I also shifted so many times. Because I did this thing and I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. And it's like a muscle that you begin to really just strengthen. The change no longer embarrassed me because I also started to feel like, oh my goodness, I feel like I present like a person with a very severe case of attention deficit. How many things is this person going to do? But once I got over the embarrassment of that, that I am not, that I can, and I owned that I can evolve and I can tell the story that works for me, then I am better able to serve as I'm showing up authentically. And so, once I created this book, and again, I got the feedback and I'm seeing all the reviews, I realized that for the individuals who got any clarity, they needed another step to be able to take that clarity and move it into something else. And then I created what is called the Empowerment Blueprint Program. And that program is a video program. It is self-paced. It's 6 weeks for those individuals who rather consume on a slower basis. But I actually interviewed 50 different individuals before I created that particular program to understand what their pressure points were, what the challenges were that they were experiencing, what the challenges that they were facing, they wanted to overcome. And I realized that one of the biggest things that everyone shared was time. They didn't feel like they had enough time to do anything. And so it's one of the reasons that the Empowerment Blueprint program is created in 15-minute modules. So every single video is only 15 minutes long. You could do it before you get out of bed. You could do it when you're in the car. It's in audio, it's in video, so you can consume the way that it works for you. And so my invitation, once I realized that I did this, I started to realize that, oh, there were people that essentially wanted to model the journey that I was on or that I had already come through, as in using the book to be able to tell your story, taking that story and then creating a program from it. And that program then informs the business. And so I created your create your own table ecosystem. So I'm able to meet you wherever you are on that journey. So it starts with the Empowerment Blueprint program. After you've gone through that program, if you decide that, you know what, now I would like to tell my story, now I would like to build that business and this book, that is the next level is the build level of that ecosystem where I would support you through this is how you now take that business and tell the story in the book so that you could identify the right people if you'd like to be able to create a program from it or whatever it is that you would like to do for however it is that you feel like you are called to serve. I am a content creator. I've been a content creator for the last 7 years. And so just showing those elements and helping you understand how to think about things, create programs, create content, it's all of it. And then my legacy level, which is the third one, that is for that individual that just needs hand holding all through the entire system. And so that's a 12-month program where you don't necessarily have to go through the empowerment for that, but you're sitting with me literally for 12 months as we just unearth all those things that are meaningful to you. But I always say the primary purpose of a table is to serve. And rather than living your life frustrated that you're not being invited to somebody else's table, take the time to create your own. And I am here to support you on that journey. So, again, thank you very much. And I hope this serves and provides great value to you. Take care.
Right. Thank you so much, Heather. That was fabulous.
You're
One of the
welcome.
items that you mentioned that I thought was so profound, and I appreciate your complete and utter honesty. You've come and traveled a great distance, and look at where you are now. And I see that you're about to take off a total international presence. And are you looking at engaging audiences all over? I mean,
Absolutely.
okay, in person and on screen.
Ideally, so the empowerment blueprint is video for that reason, so that I can reach people globally. As an
Uh,
individual who is from Grenada, I was very mindful of that. I'm like, hold on a second. There are a lot of people who don't. The reason that I am where I am is because I had opportunities, period. So if I need to be able to support you and help you, I needed to make sure that I have the option and I'm providing the opportunity for those people who are not able to meet me in person.
once we had the pleasure of meeting the prime minister from Antigua,
Yes.
and we had dinner at their home, and and what an amazing couple in that their sincerity and their simplicity were combined, but they were completely powerful. Just you could tell their presence was just powerful, and so I'm thankful that you're here, and the Caribbean and the West Indies has a profound presence in America even today. But it's an amazing time, and these are the things that I really need us to share. That the most powerful point and presence of today is now.
Yeah.
What you can do, who you can reach, what you can share, and how we can spread the news of the profound presence of this moment and now. And so, thank you for that honesty. And we're encouraging and feeling empowered with your book. And it's gonna be a great year. It's gonna be a great year. I can see it now. I can see it now.
From your lips to God's ears, Elton. From your lips to God's ears.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, 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 yes. Awesome,
And
awesome.
we'll make sure the link is available so you can sign up for this amazing new program that she's offering, and it'll have all the details
Yes.
that you need to get started. So thank you, Heather, and let's get moving on this great series. And I am going to promote it all through the Empowerment Leadership Conference because the blueprint goes well with what we're doing. So I think it's a good added complement as well. So thank you for watching Discover the video podcast. And please hit the subscribe button, write us a comment. Does anyone have a question? Okay, moving along. All right, so thank you so much.